Chapter 7. Hector awoke to the song of a mockingbird and rolled over, hoping to fall back asleep. It wasn't reasonable, but he wished Frankie was there beside him. The soft glow of dawn lit the room. Already repeating in his mind were ideas of when he'd contact her. Hector groaned as his body locked into a stretch, and he accepted that sleeping in would, once again, not be an option. He also came to terms with the fact that a hangover would likely accompany him throughout most of the day. After stretching some more and lumbering around the empty floor space of the room, he looked out to the hilltop lawn and then over to the visitor parking lot. It was all empty. He remembered something his dad would joke about, that emptiness wasn't empty at all. It was an invitation to the infinite. The upstairs office had a pile of boxes that had fallen into a scattered mess during the earthquake. He needed to reorganize some of them and put a few others in storage, but it was too early for that. The master bedroom was cool and dark, and he could smell the museum exhibit furnishings. The room smelled like a relic. Near a vanity mirror hung a painting of scattered crowds outside the Golden Gate Park Conservatory. The painting's color palette gave it the look of a Sunday morning with blue sky and leisure before the afternoon fog would arrive. Each stair creaked and popped in quick, sometimes loud spurts. The downstairs museum exhibits, like his room upstairs, were enjoying the early light of day. The old furniture, mirrors, paintings, photos, and busts greeted him. Hector had the feeling they'd become his daily welcoming party, contentedly sitting in their old age, happy to see a young face. The ocean green workroom was asleep, behind the shade of the cypress trees that peeked in through the high windows above the east wall. Hector delayed his departure from the room for a moment to feel the coolness of the cement floor on his feet. He took his coffee out the back hall and across the lawn en route to the piano. A coat of dew covered the bench, but he didn't mind. It looked as if a latent darkness from the night was still hanging inside the circular meadow. Birds chirped, and he heard the wavy calls of mourning doves. They'd likely be back at sunset to sing their hollow songs in the warmth of the fading day as well. The less tolerable heat wave days would arrive in the coming weeks, and he knew these trees would be vital to enjoy in the cool mornings and in the dusks, when the old house would be too hot to inhabit comfortably. Looking through the best practices manual for ocean green tour guides, he enjoyed the feeling of the coffee hitting his arms and legs and then his head. Once this sensation arrived, he knew it was time to reduce his intake frequency until he could temper the coffee's effects by eating some food. Caffeine usually helped him, aside from the 1 or 2 times a year it turned on him with uncontrollable shakes and anxieties. He needed polvorones more than anything at this moment, but he knew that this was not a reasonable priority. Squirrels and birds moved in the leaves around the piano. Hector thought to play a few notes, but then thought it best to get his day moving with some productive momentum. The combination of coffee mixed with a slight hangover now began to tighten in his head like a string that stretched from behind his right eye to some central nerve between the bones in his neck. It was tolerable for the moment, but he knew it would eventually break his will if he didn't take some kind of pain reliever. Mixing coffee with a hangover was always a mistake, but somehow it always sounded like a rational solution. Every time. He stood up and played 2 keys in an upward note motion. Ba-dump. With the ocean green orientation manual under his arm and his sockless feet growing humid in his shoes, he exited the shaded meadow. He walked to the left of the back door and up the 3 steps of the outdoor library to organize some of the mess caused by the earthquakes. As he picked up the books and papers, he didn't think much of them. Composition books and magazines were accompanied by sketchbooks and journals that belonged to the Ocean Green Foundation. One of the fallen books turned out to be a pink canvas binder full of loose sheets that fell from Hector's lazy hands down to the wood patio floor. Hector's headache burned with each lunge he took toward the scattered papers and notes on the ground. As he gathered the paper, he noticed the pink binder didn't have architecture notes or sketches, but writing that read more like poetry. The verses were written and scratched out, and written again. Hector forgot his headache for a moment, distracted by a wave of questions that arrived when his eyes caught 4 cursive lines written in pencil and then ink. To truly see what your others see, go beneath Teresia's trees. Hold an apple in your hand. Turn 3 circles where you stand. Hector looked out toward the area where Wonder Scott had pointed during his orientation. It crossed his mind to grab an apple from the house and walk down to Teresia's trees, but he was too hungover, and he would soon be running late to meet Noah and Fams. Chromefoot sailed along the winding streets of Pasadena in the direction of the local bakery. Today's batch of polvorones were better than the past several days, and the cookies dissolved perfectly between his sips of coffee. Hector justified his choice to drink coffee once again after convincing himself that iced coffee would not enhance the hangover the same way the hot coffee had earlier. Noah and Fams nodded lazily when Hector pulled into the empty DMV parking lot. Noah was quick to update Hector that he'd already been asked to leave by a security guard. Hector sat in the idling Crown Victoria while Fams situated his board in the trunk and dropped into the passenger seat. I always forget that these old Fords have some uber premium cushioning, Fams said, looking around at the green interior. Cushy wide seats for cushy wide Americans, Noah joked from the back seat. They laughed for a moment before attempting to brainstorm an alternative destination. How about Griffith Park, Fams suggested. Griffith J. Griffith? Noah asked, leaning forward. Yeah, why do you insist on calling it that again? Hector asked. Because I like knowing that the park isn't named after D.W. Griffith, man. D.W. Griffith can suck a dick, Fams said with a factual tone. Now there's something you don't hear very often, Noah chuckled from the back seat. The hour was still early and the afternoon crowds had not yet begun to arrive. Their targeted destination was in the middle of the city park, almost hidden by the rolling hills surrounding it. First they passed the horse stables, then the golf course, and then the large parking lot outside the zoo. After the zoo, Hector knew they were getting close, and a kind of pure excitement began emerging inside his body. It was a cement strip cutting down the incline of a small grass valley between trees with wide arms and trunks. The paved ditch was something like 12 feet wide, running the length of a long city block. Mellow contours banked up both sides, making it ideal for carving on a skateboard despite its fairly rough texture. Hector could begin at the top and glide from side to side with the downhill incline giving him and his board additional speed. There were 3 other skaters already enjoying the ditch when Hector and his old friends removed their boards from Chromefoot. Hector immediately recognized the skaters. It was 3 retired pros who Hector had admired from his earliest days skating. They were individuals that he continued to follow. Each of them had unique abilities, style, and trick selection. What Hector valued most about older pros like this was seeing them now, doing their skating with less youth, less cunning, and more wisdom. These older pros moved the culture forward and influenced the next generations that would eventually have the same responsibility. Fams knew each of them well as a result of his daily responsibilities as an agent. Hector was relieved to know that, despite their success and influence, these 3 older boarders weren't braggoos. The 3 greeted Hector, Fams, and Noah as they stretched in the park grass. After Fams managed the introductions, Noah and Hector began pushing around to warm up, while Fams hung back to talk business with the 3 legends. Hector and Noah made their way further down the ditch, where they'd have more room. They rolled back and forth, occasionally pausing to stretch a tight muscle or pop a joint. Noah and Hector were older now, too. Noah had been the first to leave for a year of school in New York. Not long after that, Hector moved to Seattle. All the while, Fams remained in Southern California, going back and forth between San Diego and Los Angeles. Noah got married and finished a program with JPL in Pasadena. Fams traveled the world to film and manage professional skateboarders, and then he got married and then divorced. There was no way to foresee their unique paths that stretched so far in differing directions coming back together. But on this summer morning, they pushed back and forth with the same joy they'd always had skating together in their youth. Before meeting Noah and Fams, Hector spent the majority of his weekends skating empty parking lots alone. He wasn't able to stay home when all he could think of was learning and perfecting all the tricks and combinations he'd yet to try. Empty weekend lots provided quiet space where he could focus and skate for hours without interruption. From those solitary days, he developed an unspoken fondness for vacant schools, banks, business parks, and strip malls. These were the places he'd built his skills and fostered his determination. Back then, he was obsessive about improving his techniques. Hector knew from years of skating that the best feeling tricks were a result of undaunted persistence. They always felt more like moments outside of time than anything else. It was something like blacking out long enough for his skills to proceed, uninterrupted by the complications of his thoughts. That blacking out, the lost sense of time, was one of the main reasons Hector would continue skating for the rest of his life. When their legs grew tired, the three sat in the grass and reviewed the video clips they'd shot of each other. Thick tree trunks laid across the grass of the small valley, as if resting under the shade of their own leaves and branches. "Hector, how did it go the other night?" Noah asked. "With that girl?" Hector replied. "I didn't want to be the one to ask, but since you're not saying a damn thing about it, I'm not officially asking." Noah smiled as Fams nodded in agreement. "It was good, man. She's cool." "So you're a fan then?" Noah pushed. "Yeah, so far," Hector confirmed. "You get her number?" Noah continued pressing. "I did," Hector confirmed. "You do any snooping around her social accounts yet?" "Not yet." "You make plans to hang out again?" "We did." "When?" "Not sure exactly, but that's all part of the fun, I guess." "How long you gonna wait?" Fams asked. "I really don't want to wait at all." "You gotta wait, man," Fams advised. Hector nodded with a skeptical bend in his lips before beginning to grin. "Thank you, Fams. Damn you." Fams laughed before continuing. "Like, say, what if she messaged you right now? Wouldn't it be a stressor for you? Like a bit too much?" It would feel pretty good, actually." "You say that now," Noah scoffed lightly. "But I put down $100 on you feeling more stressed than, pretty good." Noah always wanted to bet. On sports, on meaningless predictions like this, he loved it. "She's an artist, right?" Fams asked. "Yeah, she runs the space we were at last night. She curates shows at a few galleries around town, too." "Damn, she sounds good for you, dude," Fams replied. "Yeah, she's something else for sure." They loaded their boards into Chromefoot's trunk and stood by the open car doors, scrolling on their phones and sipping bottles of car-temperature water. Hector looked up from his phone with a face that was half humorous and half pensive. "So what do I do if she reaches out and contacts me today?" "Oh, now that's bold, regal even," Noah said in a decidedly confident tone. "I think I like her already." "Do I respond?" Hector asked. "Two things," Noah chimed in with a directive tone. "Not yet, because we need to discuss this a bit." "Also, what did she say?" Fams interrupted. "Here's what I got. Hey, hope the day is good. Let's do that again soon. Maybe something tomorrow if you're free." "Well, there you go, sir," Noah said, shaking his head. "This could only happen with you. Do you know what an absolute obstacle course Joe was? And then you just stumble into these all-expenses-paid cruises." "All right, easy there, bud. You all done?" "For now, dude, yes," Noah smiled before sipping some more water. Pebbles bounced from the tires and ricocheted off the wheel wells as Chromefoot sped toward the park exit. In the freeway traffic of the Saturday afternoon, the wind was cool. They drove in the direction of Noah's car back at the DMV. Hector needed groceries, and he needed some time to sit and collect himself after what had been a good but busy week.